All right, and welcome to the Pecha Kuchas. Here we go.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Coming up. Is it up yet?
It was.
Okay, now is it?
Yes, but only like small.
Okay, I'm going to put it up. I just want to make sure I was on the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, is it big enough now?
Yes. It looks almost too big.
Okay. Oh, how to get it lower?
There.
Okay. Back one. All right. So my project aim was to increase accurate medication reconciliation scores from 30% to 60% for all patients in a rural primary clinic by September 11th, 2018. Medication reconciliation is a complex process that affects patients. If not performed correctly, can lead to medication errors. Annually, 280,000 hospital visits with $3.5 million in excess healthcare dollars are spent on medication errors from incorrect medication reconciliation. During an audit of 20 random charts, a gap in care was noted in regards to medication reconciliation. Although each chart had medication checked as reconciled, lapsed meds were still listed in approximately 70% of charts audited, meaning only 30% of charts had proper medication reconciliation. For this reason, a medication reconciliation quality improvement project was implemented in my rural primary care clinic to help, with the help of my amazing staff. 4 PDF cycles were performed over a 8 weeks time span. Plan changes. Team engagement. We had biweekly huddles, team meetings, and end-of-week wrap-up sessions. For patient engagement, we did medication education tool, patient satisfaction surveys, automated reminder calls to bring medications to each appointment, and commercials were played in the waiting room. We had taped them and then they were played back. Screening, medication screening for all patients, reminder calls to bring meds, corrected med lists were printed and given to the patients on discharge. And our referral, we have a program called critical care management for those at risk. And so we started referring the patients with who screened positive for improper medication reconciliation to this program, and we would do the referral process through the EHR. This is my team. Team building meetings were held to identify areas to improve team communication and collaboration. Staff utilized Likert scale surveys to evaluate various aspects of teamwork throughout this project. Team meetings included ways to improve communication through collaborative learning and education, the necessity of medication reconciliation at each visit, how to engage patients, and utilization of screening tools to identify those at risk needing referral and follow-up. And these guys are great. My predictions included, in the beginning, I predicted that some team members may not attend huddles or meetings weekly. I predicted that some patients may have cognitive issues preventing them from the ability to participate. And also I predicted that patients may refuse referral to critical care management for the medication reconciliation counseling. The results found that though not all my goals were met throughout the implementation of this project, many positive outcomes were identified, as well as iterative changes in each PDSA cycle. Team attendance increased from 0 to 87.1% with a median of 88%, and did not reach the goal of 90% for collaborative learning communication. However, staff participation in meetings did continue to increase with the addition of incentives for involvement. Patient engagement was up to 68.2% from 0, exceeding the goal of 50%, with patients reporting an increased involvement in care as a positive influence noted on survey feedback. Medication screening goal of 80% was not met, but was improved from baseline of 65 to 72.3, and patient referral increased from baseline of 30% to 47.2. Noting that patients that were screened had higher referral and follow-up rates, with patients continuing to comply with CCM phone appointments as discussed during previous clinic appointments. Team satisfaction. Team satisfaction for collaboration and communication scores rose from a baseline of 40% to a mean of 89.3 and a median of 100%, with the preset goal of 90%. This goal was not met. However, attendance scores can be attributed to several days where the staff was off-site training for our patient point system we had installed in our clinic. Our patient engagement, this is actually one of our patients who agreed to let me have her picture. She's really sweet. Patient engagement tool was handed out with medication lists for patient review and changes as needed. This showed to be a good use of patient time and reduced nurse time in patient rooms reviewing meds. Patient engagement increased from 0 to 62% with a goal of 50 and exceeding goals throughout each PDSA cycle with a median of 73.9. Patient medication understanding feedback scores rose from a baseline of 20 to an average of 85.2 with a median of 90% over the 8-week implementation process. Patient with positive screens. Patient with positive screens needing referral increased from 30% to 42.7. Goal of 80% was not met. Median was 47.2 and average of 47.2. With an average of 47.2. So we did improve significantly. Patients referral CCM follow-up. High-risk patients referred with follow-up completed increased from 0 to an average of 85.4% and exceeded goal of 50% with a median of 100. In summary, results of this project show mixed findings with an overall aim for medication reconciliation of 58.8%, increase from a baseline of 60, with a goal of 60, which was not met. However, continued improvements were noted with iterative changes in each PDSA cycle. Team attendance increased from 87% with a median of 88 and did not reach the goal of 90%. Medication screening goal of 80% was not met, but was improved from baseline. I think I already said that. Continuing to comply with CCM phone appointments as discussed during stages of learning. Educating patients at multiple levels increased understanding and engagement. Weekly huddles, lunch meetings, and Friday wrap-up sessions were beneficial to collaborative learning and communication among the team. Morning huddles helped to improve staff communication, and daily preparation of medication lists were printed and patient education tools were ready to be handed out. By adding commercials to the waiting room and automated patient callback reminders in several areas throughout this implementation, staff were less burdened with extra tasks and more patients had exposure to the medication reconciliation safety process. Utilizing the EHR for referral allowed for easy tracking of task completion and follow through by the staff and CCM nurse. Impact on the system. I found the project to be beneficial to the clinic and the community. Ensuring medication reconciliation and safety will help to prevent medication errors through identification of those at increased risk and prompt intervention. Addition of medication reconciliation screening of patients prior to appointment increase patients' awareness of medication safety and provide an updated medication list to patients at discharge, increase ability to have an easy access to copy of medications to refer to as needed and could easily be implemented in any other like clinics. Staff huddles increase staff willingness to communicate with each other and allow time to plan and clarify any needs to be addressed prior to beginning of workday and thereby improving patient care. Conclusion. Outcomes of this project: increased participation and willingness to attend huddles, patient safety. Wait times did not increase as patients completed medication reconciliation prior to provider visits with a decrease in patient times in the clinic. This project is sustainable as an automated reminder system is already in place and requires no additional cost and has potential to decrease staff workload, and returning patients will have current updated lists, which will help reduce medication errors and thereby decrease the number of patients seen in ER for adverse drug reactions. Although all goals were not met for this project, a significant improvement of each process and outcome measure was achieved throughout each PDSA cycle. Noting that continuing to improve upon process had the potential to reach and exceed each goal and a sustainable program for this patient population. Think quality. Quality improvement is a never-ending process. Factors that promote success include entire staff office willingness. Barriers to change included unexpected disruption in day-to-day operations, change in staff, and inability to reach patients for follow-up calls when referral was needed before our automated system was put in place. I learned that patients are willing to participate in care when it is clearly discussed with them and were able to have discussions with provider to improve their care. I learned that staff are more willing to participate in quality improvement when monetary or other incentives are offered to show appreciation for their time and effort. I've learned that clear and open communication is highly effective and encourage collaboration and improve teamwork. I learned that quality improvement requires a lot of patience, time, dedication, identifying, organizing, following up, and spreading needed changes to improve patient care. and outcomes. Ultimately, I have learned that identifying key stakeholders of multidisciplinary backgrounds for input and involving them in quality improvement prior to starting any project is highly beneficial to the success of the project and team as a whole. And remember, quality improvement is a never-ending process that keeps changing and adapting to make things better and safer for your patient population. Thank you. Okay, any questions about anything? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello. Oh, hi. Do you guys have any? Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
Good job, and you can talk very fast.
I'm so sorry. I do talk fast. I do. It's a very bad habit.
It's a skill.
All right, so I'm going to pull up.
Okay. Oh, let me stop sharing.
Oh, I was going to ask, what do you think you would do differently? Like what's one thing you were like, oh, next time if I were to do this, or if I was going to talk to someone else?
If I was going to do something different, I probably wouldn't have scheduled all of this stuff at the same time. We had a new patient point system put in the clinic, and my staff was having to be off-site training, and that's why some of our scores, we didn't meet some of our goals. We had lots of hundreds for team meetings, but when there wasn't teams, when the team was having to train, there was more absences, so that decreased. I didn't meet my goals because of that.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, Dale.
All right, here we go. Are we up? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
You can hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so a patient-centered approach to depression screening using PHQ-9 in an adult urban pain clinic. When I started discussing this project with the team and did chart reviews based on what current research and guidelines for our patient population showed, I realized that comparing our clinic process to other similar clinics was not even close to meeting the actual standard of care, and it was very humbling. Our aim was to improve adult depression screening using PHQ-9 and delivery of right care to 75% because we had never screened for depression, nor were we aware that our adult chronic pain population was at a much higher risk. A simple screening, how hard can that be? Just add a form, tell the providers what to do with it, and you're in business of quality improvement. We started at rock bottom because our clinic had never followed any protocols. We added weekly team meetings to include role play, guest speakers, and a focused agenda. Staff was educated on depression and our patient population, use of the new tools, interpretation of PHQ-9, and new documentation practices. Change began with one NP in cycles 1 and 2 and added a new provider with each cycle. PH screening tool was added directly to all new patient forms, and a shared decisional aids was modified to include not only medication options, but lifestyle choices. Patient surveys were sent by a survey monkey and later given to patients at the end of their visits. A very lively test of change with patient engagement included a patient focus group held at the radio station. Although the information was valuable, it was part of our cycle 4 change, and we were unable to implement the changes or measure their value. We'll be using these in the future. A case management log was created to ensure patients who screened greater than 9 received focused education, referral information for this chosen intervention, and a follow-up call for further discussion and reiteration of options. This was successful after integrating the log directly into our SOAP template, along with questions taken from our Right Care checklist. In spite of a rough start, I predicted both team attendance and confidence levels would reach 80%. Staff would screen for depression at a rate of 80%, and providers would use the shared decisional aid 75% of the time with positively screened patients. I predict patients would rate their perception of feeling more supported and engaged at a rate of 80% after provider interventions. I predicted providers would document and provide positively screened patients with right care according to the North Carolina Community Care Toolkit at least 80% of the time. By the end of implementation, right care was provided on average 79% of the time, but we ended strong at 97% and feel after streamlining the documentation and screening process, we could sustain these numbers with continuous team efforts. Team satisfaction maintained steady improvements and ended at 86% with team bonding. Confidence pre-implementation was 29%. The team had no experience with depression screening or education. Weekly education, role-playing, make it fun, and patient stories really helped improve the numbers to 87%. Use of the shared decisional aid improved in cycle 3 when we combined patient referral information and educational into one booklet. We added a third provider in cycle 4 with an expected decrease, followed by a significant improvement when we abbreviated and focused the discussion for patients scoring less than 10 on their PHQ-9 screening. Depression screening remained high after the initial pilot when we added the screening tool to all new patient forms. We added the PHQ to our online forms in cycle 4 to improve sustainability and capture patients who preferred our online format. Right care significantly improved in cycle 3 when providers were given a pre-populated telephone checklist. Improvements continued into cycle 4 when we merged the required documentation into the clinic SOAP notes. This was very significant, and providers were very happy to document all in one place. We met our aim. However, team confidence and right care scores fell slightly below goal. They were mitigated with improvements in leadership and documentation protocols. We expected to find a higher rate of depression, but are happy with the capture rate of 58%, using literature average of 65% for this population, though the range was much more broad. The right leadership and a dedicated team, including patients, can have a significant improvement on quality improvement, including a provider job satisfaction and patient perceived level of engagement. Addressing resistance and asking for help is better than forcing change. That can make all the difference, along with appreciation and small acts of kindness. This project confirms depression screening and right care can be accomplished with a system with very few protocols. The improvements to the project make it generalizable to any practice, with results validating the need for improved depression screening among the population. Sustainability requires united efforts of all stakeholders. Once the logistics of the new protocols are in place and the process starts with the right team, with the right attitude, with the right goal in mind, we can provide right care. Barriers were also the facilitators. We started without strong leadership, without team buy-in, and it was very poor. And we had no collaborating relationships within the community. 10 weeks later, we're building a team dedicated to continual improvement, and we're making connections. Our common goal is to improve care for patients, and we can make a difference. Oops. All right.
Very good.
I tried to
Congratulations.
add a little humor in there because we had a rough start.
You did good from kind of starting from nothing, almost.
We originally when we started, we were comparing our clinic to other clinics of the same, we're a cannabis clinic. And what I realized was that doesn't work, because it was a humbling experience. And we lost 3 team members in the beginning. So
that must have freaked you out. I remember that. You're like, oh my God, what's happening?
I was really, I thought we were going to lose more. We've had a rough start, but we're adding, it's better. It's a lot better. We have a team right now, the 3 of us, the 3 clinical, we're really good. So in getting better, and everybody's very tight. So we were laughing about it today, saying everything happens for a reason. Imagine if they were still here. I don't think we could have done it.
Exactly.
Discussions with too many different values. The input wasn't good, and it took them really leaving to really start to focus my leadership abilities. That was a big problem because I like, I'm nice to everybody. So I like, so it was rough, but we did it.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you, Dale. I apologize in advance for the recording because I keep forgetting that I have to hit on your name in order for the recording to capture your full screen presentation. I think I did it, but I wasn't sure for yours, Dale. I mean, it caught it. It just might not be like full size. So I apologize in advance.
I'm trying to screen share right now. Can everybody see?
Yep.
Just want to test it. Okay. You ready? Okay. Hi, my name is Hillary McNamara. I work as an FNP in a cardiology practice in Delray Beach, Florida, and have been with the practice for 1 year. My focus was on improving right care in symptomatic heart failure patients through a patient-centered approach. My aim was to increase the overall composite score of patient-centered right care in heart failure patients from 55% to 85% within 8 weeks. The planned changes that I tested include weekly team meetings, daily huddles, a patient guest speaker at a meeting for the team, and heart failure symptom activity assessment engagement tools for the patients. We screened the positively identified patients and entered them into a right care case management log, as well as reviewed heart failure guidelines. I predicted that collaboration and communication would increase morale and encourage mutual respect in the team, that patient engagement would increase confidence in the ability to recognize symptoms. I predicted that the number of symptomatic heart failure patients in our practice was above the national average, and that case management log will gradually increase right care and lead to decreased symptoms over time. Team participation scores were highest on the day when lunch was provided. Effectiveness survey results found that I think my involvement in the QI project will improve overall heart failure care was the lowest scoring until a patient spoke about how through this QI project his quality of life improved and how grateful he is to us all in PDSA-4. And this is my wonderful team, and that's King. He was our guest patient. He's 100, and he's given written permission for me to use this special photo. Patient engagement outcomes showed improvements throughout the project. However, the lowest scoring question was, I understand the symptom assessment form and I am confident I can recognize warning signs of worsening heart failure, for which feedback included simplifying the tool and making it more visual, a change that was made in PDSA-4, which revealed improved engagement results. These are the patient engagement tools that were used, which the patients prefer the more simple one on the right. The RAMP-C screening tool use improved when moved to the EHR and PDSA-4, and outcome results revealed a direct correlation with the percent of symptomatic heart failure patients that decreased as team engagement, patient engagement, and percent of right care scores increased. In RAMP-D, the right care case management log use was 100% throughout the project. Outcome scores were dependent on the schedule, and no real correlation was made until PDSA-4, where patients were having their follow-up appointments and reporting less or no additional symptoms. The aim was reached and maintained above goal in PDSA-4, though it was dependent on the success of each of the 4 ramps. Team engagement increased patient engagement, which ultimately led to increased identification of symptomatic patients to be screened and managed with right care. As the right care percent increased, the percent of symptomatic patients decreased. In Ramp A, team participation ranged from 66 to 100%, and satisfaction survey results increased from 72.5 to 89%. In Ramp B, patient engagement tool use ranged from 42.86% to 100%. Engagement survey results increased from 62% to 94.2%. In Ramp C, screening tool use ranged from 42.86% to 100%. Percent of symptomatic heart failure patients decreased from 35% to 16.67%. In Ramp D, case management log use remained 100%. The total percent of patients receiving right care increased from 70.83 to 97.91%. I learned that team and patient communication is essential, that if one process does not work, to change it, such as from paper to EHR. Most importantly, we as a team learned that when we are stuck, to go back and review, such as the heart failure guideline review immediately improved right care. We learned to appreciate and embrace our failures. By implementing these changes in any practice, there is a potential to decrease heart failure hospitalizations, which will save the practice, community, and nation thousands of dollars annually. Continuously educating each other and staying up to date on the latest guidelines are sure to benefit patients, increase optimal outcomes, and lead to more successful practices nationwide. In conclusion, this project was a huge success. We find that we have few focused, simple, multi-dimensional goals shared amongst us all that are consistent with sustainability, as discussed by Bapna in his article, 4 Key Factors for Sustainable Development Goals. We desire to continually improve the future of our patients and our practice. The factors that promoted the success of this project were frequent communication, non-threatening feedback, being open to change, and trusting each process. It is necessary to struggle, it's okay to be wrong, and it is especially important to rely on the team in those times. However, through persistence, teamwork, and having a common goal to reach, it is possible to succeed. And here we go. This is my favorite. In addition to Dr. Verzoni and my colleagues, you guys, I feel very obligated to thank my 2 additional lifesavers this term, Daniel and Juan. They're computer geniuses that were there every time I needed them. There was never a time I could not call for help or drive to their house in a complete panic. And I thought it was important to show my deep appreciation for you all. And I had some references. And that's it. Are I still screen sharing? Or I just can't?
You know, part of your grade, you guys, is engaging in discussion about each other's presentations.
So that was a great introduction. And you have a very calming voice, so I like that.
Yeah, your speaking is definitely, you speak at a really good cadence when you're giving a presentation.
Oh, thank you. I was a nervous wreck until PDSA 4 week 2, right, Dr. Verzoni? And I did add an extra week too, just because I finally
It was pretty
caught
cool.
on.
You got the magical click, though.
And it was simple. It wasn't anything hard, you know? So.
So do you typically have 100-year-old patients?
I have one that's going to be 108 next month.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I can't believe it.
That's great.
All right. Do you want me to go, or should we talk about?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
You guys do have your evaluation forms that can help guide your comments. one that was attached to your email.
Is that too big or is that okay?
Looks great.
All right, so I'll go ahead and get started. Maternal obesity is linked to multiple significant maternal and fetal risks. It's conservatively estimated that 21% of American women begin their pregnancies with an obese body mass index, that is, a BMI greater than or equal to 30. This project, entitled Improving Effective Obesity Screening and Management of Prenatal Patients in a Multi-Site Midwifery Practice, focused on addressing this timely issue. The clinical site was comprised of 2 offices in 2 different cities in southern Arizona, both offices being part of one midwifery practice called Desert Blossom Women's Care. The Tucson site is smaller in volume but with a more diverse urban population, while the Sierra Vista office is a busy practice in a rural border town with a high military presence. The aim of this quality improvement project was to increase effective screening and early right care of obese prenatal patients to 85% from a baseline of 43% within 8 weeks. A clear process was initiated for documenting pre-pregnancy weight and height in the electronic medical record, and then using that information to calculate and document pre-pregnancy BMI for all prenatal patients. This process, along with the other tests of change, was communicated to the team members through a variety of meetings, including all team meetings, huddles, and one-on-ones. An early right care log was created. Patients were placed in the log if they were less than 28 weeks gestation with a BMI greater than or equal to 30. 5 right care components were tracked: weight gain recommendation of 11 to 20 pounds, recommendation of 30 minutes of exercise on most days, early diabetes screening, nutrition referral, and first trimester dating ultrasound. A patient engagement tool was developed in the form of a healthy pregnancy booklet with an obesity management options checklist. When the midwife reviewed the booklet with the patient, she covered 3 of the 5 aspects of early right care. The checklist tool was reviewed with patients as a means of encouraging them to consider small, evidence-based ideas that they can implement to stay healthy during their pregnancy. I predicted that the multi-site nature of the practice would make coordination between all of the team members challenging. I also predicted that standardization of the BMI screening process would lead to improved early identification of obese prenatal patients, which would in turn increase the amount of evidence-based early right care that these patients receive. Small tests of change to the initial core interventions were correlated with a steady increase in the overall aim of the project. The most notable changes included prospective BMI calculation for existing patients and reminder notes for the use of the Healthy Pregnancy Booklet for obese patients. By the end of the 4th cycle, the aim results exceeded the goal of 85%. After initial struggles with staff adaptation to the new BMI screening process, screening increased significantly over the course of the project to finish at 94%. Fluctuations were attributed to lower BMI screening for new patients compared to established patients, and significant variation between screening rates at the Tucson versus Sierra Vista offices. At baseline, obese patients received a mean right care score of 2 out of the 5 early components. The mean right care score slowly increased over the course of implementation, with the final cycle's mean right care score reaching 3.9 out of 5. Adding tool use reminder notes, which covered 3 of the 5 right care components, led to sustained increased mean right care scores in the final outcome. Oh no. Okay, sorry. The use of the patient engagement booklet and checklist tool fluctuated frequently and was dependent on the number of eligible patients seen on a given day, as well as which provider saw the patient. Inconsistent use was noted until cycle 4, when adding reminders to eligible patient charts increased cycle 4 average use of the tool to 84.4%. While there were challenges with team buy-in, in-services and one-on-one feedback led to an increase in team member confidence. Patient confidence also increased with use of the Healthy Pregnancy Booklet and checklist tool. Implementation of the new process led to an increase in the percentage of all patients screened and in the detection rate of pre-pregnancy obesity. By the end of the project, early right care of obese patients increased almost 2-fold. As predicted, the multi-site nature of the practice did present challenges with implementation. Tucson's results were consistently more positive than Sierra Vista's, but the volume of patients between the 2 practices was imbalanced, with Sierra Vista having a much larger volume. Fluctuation in screening and right care was seen over the course of the project, but there was an overall upward trend and sustained improvement over baseline as predicted. When the right care log was opened for all providers to use, logging of patients dropped dramatically. This exemplifies that In early quality improvement endeavors in this particular system, it may be best to assign tracking and analysis to one team member who is then responsible for disseminating to the greater team. The project exemplified that clear, evidence-based process changes can lead to positive impacts on both patient care and the patient's experience of care. This is significant as the Desert Blossom Women's Care practice as a whole is lacking in many basic policies and process outlines for patient care. The project showed the development of these processes is achievable when broken down into small steps. Maternity care providers can utilize the findings from this project to help increase both patient and staff confidence related to managing obesity and pregnancy. Practices could achieve this by developing a similar patient engagement tool that promotes health and discusses weight with a focus on patient choice and control. Universal prenatal BMI screening and early rate care management for obese prenatal patients began at a baseline of 43% and increased to an average of 84.4% in the final PDSA cycle. This was a growth of almost 100% from baseline to project end, but just slightly under the AIM's overall goal of 85%. Certain elements of the project will continue beyond implementation, including use of the patient engagement booklet and checklist tool, as well as incorporation of quality improvement into team meetings. Sustainability of the screening reached in cycle 4 will require continued auditing of new patient charts. Ideally, a method of automatic BMI calculation in the EMR would be developed, and then auditing will not be necessary. Team buy-in and its link to project success was a theme that weaved throughout the entire project. I found the Sierra Vista office was especially challenging to implement as there were larger practice issues that took priority for most of the staff. This was in contrast to Tucson, where the new processes were adopted by the team early on. This allowed me to implement the project at 2 sites and spend most of my energy on the site that required more support. I was overwhelmed at the idea of incorporating evidence and tracking change at the clinic-wide level prior to implementation. Leading this project helped me to understand that while quality improvement is a large undertaking, it's possible to affect positive change even in a challenging clinical environment. All right.
So will both clinics adopt this?
The Tucson definitely will. It already has. So like if you looked, I didn't separate it throughout the entire project, but for little parts where I separated the clinics, I mean, Tucson was like 100% for everything. So
did you spend most of your time there?
Yeah, it's probably like 60-40, 60%, but I'm Tucson 40% at the other in Sierra Vista.
And do you think if you spent more time at Sierra Vista, they'd be able to adopt it as well?
No, I think there are a lot, like much bigger practice problems and challenges that are going on right now that need to be taken care of first. I think that if those are addressed, absolutely this process could take over, but until they address the underlying problems, I think it will require a lot more intensive work. So like I was saying, like on the good side, because Tucson was doing so well, I could just focus on Sierra Vista because I didn't really have to babysit anybody in Tucson, whereas in Sierra Vista, I could just focus all my energy. So.
Mm-hmm. So, before go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying she felt more supported at her Tucson location than she did the Sierra, and probably you could communicate better with the Tucson than you could at the Sierra Vista.
It was a good lesson in teamwork, and it sounds cheesy to say, but the way that our office in Tucson works together, there's great mutual respect among everybody there, among the MAs, the doctors, the midwives, the ultrasonographers. We all just work really well together, and there's a lot of animosity among the staff at the other location. I mean, that's something, that's a whole quality improvement project unto itself, to help increase how do you get a team to work well together, So it was a big challenge, but there was still improvement, despite the personnel challenges at that site, there was still improvement, so.
Is that the site where the consultant was?
Where the what?
Did you had a consultant or some lady come in?
No.
Was that you? No.
So what about the presentation styles, everyone? Like, you know, do you all have any constructive feedback for each other? Like, oh, I would change this because, you know, as it said in the email, I wanted you to come up with a couple of positive things and then constructive comments. So, you know, starting with Brenda and moving down, we don't have to hear something from everyone necessarily, but what constructive feedback would you give each other?
I would just say simplify it, and it's hard to do. Slow down. You know, it's very hard to get your point across in 20 seconds per slide, but it's doable. So it's easily understood.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's not like you need to cram all of the statistics into your presentation. You want to just pull out the most impressive ones, right? For all of you. It's not like you have to go through each PDSA cycle and each iteration of all of them. You can just say, you know, the most significant things for each PDSA cycle. And then, of course, your aim and whatnot. Mm-hmm. One thing I noticed is, you know, if you guys are saying 100%, that's basically the same thing as saying doubled. So it just sounds a little less awkward if you're like, you know, we almost doubled, you know, versus saying like 100%, like we increased by 100%. Most people know the word doubled a little bit more easily than 100% in a presentation. And then overall, definitely, you know, try to be more conversational. Like I think, you know, Dale, like you definitely had that good vibe in the beginning of just making it a bit more conversational, but it was pretty clear that everyone was reading, which kind of makes sense when you're, you know, under a time pressure. But for your final presentation, you're really going to want to be more conversational and more like you're up there telling a story. You know, for your presentation, you should not be just reading off of something. You should actually be able to look at your slides and talk about them without reading. Okay. So that's something I want you to start to get used to. And definitely, you know, with the time pressure, like I said, when you're cramming it in, it helps. But it's, could you imagine going to a conference and then signing up for like a breakout session and then the person just reading to you from something? Like you'd be like, I'm out of here. I'm going to go sit by the pool instead, right? Or maybe you do that anyway. I don't know. But yeah.
I think it's just hard, like for things I know really well, like I'm comfortable speaking in front of people and I'm comfortable like, you know, talking about stuff that I just know like the back of my hand. I still feel like I'm learning this stuff, even though I just finished the whole cycle. Like I'm afraid I'm going to like say the wrong thing and, you
absolutely
know, the wrong language or whatever.
We understand that. We understand that. Yeah.
And it's hard for me to slow down. I try, and then it's like I start ramping up, and it just goes like wildfire. It's always been that way.
What about slides for each other? Did you guys have any comments about each other's slides? Ones that you would keep out, ones that were too confusing, anything like that?
Oh, there were some great pictures in some of them.
I love the pictures of the slides.
See, and the Pecha Kuchas are really nice because you're getting to the like, you know, the more fun pictures like of the patients and stuff like that. Like I really enjoyed that as well.
Of course, you can kind of, you know, picture yourself there in a way.
It personalizes it.
Okay, well, let's just dive into, so I just wanted to let you know about the squires. You know, a lot of them are going to be based off of a lot of the things you discussed here, right? So I hope you're starting to appreciate that the assignments build off of one another and that, you know, even though they're a lot of hard work and tedious in the end, like next term is going to be so much easier if you put in the groundwork now for that. So when you're doing your Squire paper, you know, one thing to do, you know, you definitely want to rest over break because this was kind of a traumatic term for many of you and you just want to like come down, relax, let yourself heal, let your stress hormones start to drop. And one thing I recommend that Dr. Butler actually told me a while ago that I think could be helpful is print out your run charts for each ramp and put the process run chart next to the outcome run chart on your wall for each ramp. And then over time, just keep kind of looking at those and seeing if there's an association between the process and the ramp. Like, oh, I noticed when, you know, we dropped the ball on using the surveys that patient satisfaction went down. Or, you know, I noticed when we had these certain events on the run chart, there's associations across all the ramps. So just having it up there visually to be looking at periodically can be really helpful, okay? And then you can start to think more deeply and at the doctoral level about sort of higher level relationships and associations between and among the ramps, okay? And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I would suggest. No, I think that that's the main thing I wanted to let you know. So try to look at, don't make next term harder than it needs to be. You've done a lot of groundwork now, reuse a lot of your information. And again, you need to incorporate the feedback that we gave you for the PDSA 4s. Because if you don't update the feedback that we gave you, if you're just like, oh, this term's done, I don't care, I passed, you're going to have trouble when you start writing your squires, because we're going to have to address the same thing and more points will be knocked off if you didn't integrate stuff that we already told you about last term. Okay, so definitely integrate that. Make a list again, like I recommended, about all the feedback you've gotten so that you can update all of that, especially, your measurement worksheets, if you were still getting comments about those or anything, because those need to be dialed when you're going to use them for your paper. Do you all have any questions?
What now for QI 301? In the IHI form.
Oh, yeah. I had a little trouble with that because I had 2 different logins or something, but essentially you're going to upload your final PDSA charter, or, you're going to actually upload 2 of them. I believe it is your trackers, your PDSA trackers into there, and just follow the instructions, because it's going to ask you to upload, X number of run charts. Don't just pick random ones. Pick your most significant ones, like the one for your AIM and the one for a couple one. Upload those. Upload your 2 PDSA trackers that you're most proud of. For many of you, that'll be your last one because you made so many improvements up until that point. And then when you submit all that, someone at IHI actually reviews it, and then you can print out a certificate.
We can't do it with the links, though, right? We have to put everything into the tracker.
No, you can use it in the links. You can use the links, but you just have to make sure they work.
Okay.
And you have to make sure that the link is accessible by anyone with the link and not unique to Frontier. So there's a setting you can use for when you get the shareable link. It'll say, like, do you want this to be shareable with anyone with the link or only people within your community? So you want to make sure it's shareable to anyone with the link. Any other questions? Congratulations! All right. Okay, you all. So I'll see you next term. All right. You're almost done. Get some good rest. Hang in there. Start letting the deeper relationships of your run charts and all the different PDSA cycles start to percolate in you so that you can really impress everyone with your papers next term and with your presentation. Okay. And if you have any questions, just email me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.